everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be my February wrap-up. So I'm going to be sharing with you the 13 books that I finished this month. It's a little bit excessive, but you'll see. Some of them were shorters, and one of them is a book I did not finish. But still, quite a few books to talk about, so we're just gonna go ahead and start. Oh, a quick little announcement. I am doing a live chat tonight at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so definitely check that out if you want to see me answer questions on assumptions that you have about me. Once it's not live anymore, it will still be on the channel, so I'll link that down below. The first book I finished in February was Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson, which was an ARC. Actually, it's coming out March 5th, so perfectly on time to sell it to you. And this is my fourth book by him. The first book was the best, in my opinion. The last two kind of became worse and worse. Like the last book that I read, I hated it. Actually made it to my worst book of 2018. But this one is actually pretty solid. I don't think it beats the first one in my opinion, but it's still pretty solid. So in this book, you're following a couple that just moves in next door to another couple, and things start looking a little weird. The main female character is an artist, and she starts suspecting the neighbor to be possibly a killer that reminds her of something that happened in her past and everything, and then you don't know who's telling the truth, who's lying. I feel like it was less of a shocking kind of thriller. It wasn't that I didn't see things coming, it just felt like it flowed nicely. I feel like sometimes it's nice to read a book that doesn't stress you as much and that doesn't try so hard to have twists that you don't see coming. So I actually appreciated that a lot with this one. It was still kind of messed up in the best way possible. You know, thrillers, I do like them to be a little, out there. And overall, I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I do recommend it. I'm keeping it a little vague because obviously don't want to spoil it. It's a thriller. I feel like it's better to go into it a little bit blind. So still giving it a thumbs up. Next book I finished was Rogue Protocol by Martha Wells, which is book 3 in the Murderbot series. I believe the 4th book is already out, so I need to pick that up soon. But you're following a very antisocial robot, and a job is usually to just protect people, but then things happen. Obviously, it's a 3rd book. But what's important is that the humor is still good. I feel like we're back on track because I felt like book 2 was kind of a letdown a little bit. I feel like book 3 is definitely more up there, and I'm excited to continue this series. It's gonna be something that, read the first one. It's like a novella. It's fairly short. It's like 100-something pages each, like all of the books. And if you like that humor, you're gonna like the whole series. If you don't force yourself, but I'm enjoying it. I give it also 4 stars, and I am excited to just continue. I would read pretty much anything about Murderbot just because I like the humor. So, a good light sci-fi. The next book I finished was Redemption's Blade by Andrian Tchaikovsky, which is the same author as Children of Time, which made it to my best of 2018, like the giant spiders. Actually, book 2 is coming out in May. I'm so excited for so many books coming out this year. But yeah, I wanted to read more from him. And this book, the twist is that it's written after the epic war. Like, I feel like every book, fantasy, this is a classic fantasy, but the twist is like everything happens, you hear about it throughout the book, but the whole story's after the fact. I don't know. It was an interesting twist to it. I appreciated how you're part of it, like a group of kind of mercenary, I guess. And I appreciate like their relationships, and it was just a very interesting world. It's hard to describe. Like, it's not one of those books that it's going to be staying with me forever. It's not one of those books that it's the easiest to like sell to people. It's not like epic. It probably won't make it to my best of the year, but I still thought it was kind of refreshing and just very classic and interesting. So if you're someone that you're just looking for more fantasy, I would recommend it. I thought it was fairly solid. I gave it 3.75, I think. And I rounded it up at 4 on Goodreads. So to be honest, I feel like I would just read more by him just because of his writing. There is the 2nd book from that series, but I'm not sure I'm going to be reading it because it's written by someone else, and I feel like the most solid part in the book was his writing. So instead, I will just read book 2 of Children of Time. I think it's Children of Ruin, so we'll read that fairly soon. Okay, now, one book that I do have a lot to say. I feel like sometimes books, I am like, I read it, I liked it, or I didn't like it, but that's pretty much it. There's not that much to say about them. This one, though, was part of my Goodreads reading challenge. If you don't know anything about it, I'll link it down below. But basically, I'm reading a lot of the winners that were winners of the Goodreads Choice Awards. that they do every year, and I'm trying to like read all the winners or like some of the finalists and then decide at the end of the year if I thought they should be the winners or not, or like if I would have chosen personally them as the winners. And one of the ones that won last year, or that was part of finalists, was The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro and Daniel Cross. And this is basically, they took the movie and made it a book kinda, or they were written at the same time, something like that. And oh my, I listened to it as an audiobook, which I would recommend doing because I thought it was a great audiobook, / it's the only reason I finished it. That and the fact that it was part of a challenge. I had described it as a romance between a woman and Aquaman, and you know what? I am sticking with that summary because yes. The thing is, it's magical realism, which we do not get along. Like, I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, give me whatever aliens, weird stuff, I will love it. But magical realism, for some reason, it doesn't work. Plus it was romance, so also not my favorite genre. So basically, you're following the story of, what's her name? Zelda, which, not off to a good start. And she is a janitor, she works nighttime, and she's mute, and she kind of started developing a relationship with this water creature that was captured from the deep, deep forest, at the jungle actually. And they kind of start developing a relationship, and then it kind of becomes a romance, and stuff just gets so weird at the end. And I still actually have yet to watch the movie because after reading the book I was like, yeah, no. Like, it wasn't that it was terrible. As an audiobook, it was okay. It's just that the weird last bit definitely, like, it was fine, I guess, until the weird stuff. Ooh. Then I listened to Brief Answers to Big Questions by Stephen Hawking. Basically, they made a short book answering a bunch of, like, really big questions like, is there a God? Is there any other intelligent life in the universe? Is time travel possible? Will artificial intelligence outsmart us? Those type of questions, and they kind of mixed it with a little bit of his life and a few like answers of questions like that he answered in like interviews and stuff. And I thought it was a really nice book. I do recommend it also as an audiobook. I feel like these type of science books are just very accessible as audiobooks. I feel like I can just listen to them on the go or in the shower or whatever. And you can like pause it at any time and you're still good to go next time. I feel like very complicated fiction, sometimes I can't necessarily do that, but nonfiction is good for it. And I would totally recommend it. I feel like I just like these type of like kind of candy nonfictions about science. Just something I like. It makes me feel like I'm actually learning stuff, although fairly often it's like repeating the same stuff over and over again. But you know what? Sometimes when you're listening to an audiobook, you have to hear it a few times until it sticks. But yeah, that one was good. It's a fairly short one too. It's about like 5 hours-ish, so would definitely recommend it. It was interesting, enjoyed it. I give it 4.5, 5 stars. Doesn't really matter. Nonfiction, I tend to not really give ratings, so liked it. Next book was Sing Unburied Sing by Jasmine Ward. This is a book that was out of my comfort zone. I feel like I've been overdoing it in the last like 2 months. I've been doing a lot of challenges and kind of, you know, starting on the right foot and just reading a bunch. And last month it was still okay, but this one I feel like I read a lot that were just not for me. And again, coming out of my comfort zone is good, but sometimes it's not going to work and it can make you kind of slumpy-ish. I'm not feeling too slumpy, but I'm just finding that next month I need to kind of change things up a little bit. If you haven't seen it, my March TBR is already out. Damn, I have like the worst like mouth issue right now. But yeah, I grabbed this book and I did listen to it partially as an audiobook, and man, I feel like the chapters were so long that I would have time to like forget that there were 2 narrators, and I would be like, oh, every time I'm starting to get into the story, it switches up. And I don't know, I would just not be able to like get with it. Basically, it's one of those books that I've received so many like prizes and like praises by everyone that you feel like you have to like, but then when I ended up listening to it, I just could not connect to it. I do still think the writing was beautiful. I do think the story is great and that like it's an important story to be told. It's just that I didn't connect to it. So yeah, it's basically about family, poverty, racism, and yeah, I feel like a lot of people like it, so just because I didn't like it doesn't mean anything in this case. It just isn't for me. This is the book that I did not finish. I DNF'd it about 50%. Oh, that was a nice interesting little short story. This is The Test by Sid Van Eved, which is the same author as the Temesfile series, like the giant robots. And this is a little bit different for him. This, I would kind of say it's kind of similar vibe as Black Mirror. So if you enjoy those, you might enjoy this one. At least the beginning definitely felt Black Mirror-ish. I didn't enjoy the ending. Let me start from the beginning. This is kind of a dystopian, futuristic world where a family is trying to immigrate to the UK. But to do so, they have to pass a test to show that they would be a great citizen. And the test is not exactly what you would think it is. And things kind of go very dark very quickly. And then obviously not going to spoil anything. My issue was the after. Like, I feel like if it ended earlier, it would have been better for me. I feel like the after part kind of brought it down. Anyway, it's short. Definitely recommend it. It's about like 100 pages, so you could definitely read this like in one sitting. It's pretty messed up. It's definitely like a thought-provoking type of book, and I do recommend it if you are looking for something a little messed up but interesting. I ended up giving it 4 stars too. I feel like I gave a lot of like 3-4 stars this month. Ooh, the next book. It's one of those things, I ended up grabbing it because it's becoming a movie and it's highly raved about, but you know, you can't always love everything. But just because I didn't like the book doesn't mean I'm gonna not like the movie. This is a type of book that I tend to actually enjoy movies of. So, I'm talking about The Sun Is Also Starred by Nicola Yoon. I had told myself, it's a YA contemporary, and I told myself that I wasn't going to read more from this author because I didn't like everything. I liked the character and I liked the beginning, but then the romance and the ending was such a mess that I just could not stand it. I didn't watch that movie, but I was like, you know what? This one is becoming a movie, so I might as well try and, you know, get into it. It's coming out May 17th if they don't move it, because every time I talk about a book that's becoming a movie, they always push it out, So yeah, I went into this book with a still open mind, and I did enjoy the first like half-ish. It was like a cutesy YA romance type of book. You're following 2 main characters. Natasha, and she's Jamaican American, and her family's being deported in like 12 hours. And then you're following a little boy too, the Korean American, and you kind of follow them falling in love and kind of meeting all like, ooh, cute stuff happens. And again, romance and you were not really best friends, but even though I thought it was overly sugary towards like middle point on, it got a little too much for me. And my excuse is always like, it's becoming too cheesy, I'm lactose intolerant, you know, just we can't agree. But I feel like it's gonna be a very cute movie, so I'm still like hopeful I'm gonna enjoy the movie. I would say if you love YA contemporary romance, go ahead, you're gonna love this. I mean, the reviews are really high. There's like 100,000 ratings on Goodreads and it's like over 4 stars, but I feel like Goodreads tend to be very generous with its rating for YA books sometimes. So it's gonna really depend, but if you don't really like them but you prefer the movies version, I would recommend watching it. I mean, that's kind of how it happened also with like To All the Boys I Loved Before, right? I feel like it's a very, very cute movie. The book was still okay, but the whole series, not really. But the movie was cute, so I'm hopeful it's gonna happen. So this one I gave 2 stars just because we didn't connect. It happens. Finally, a book I loved. Let me grab this because, oh my god. I did do a reading vlog, which is spoiler free, so definitely would recommend checking that out if you want more details. But I think in the future I'm going to do reading vlogs where I will do spoiler free until the end, and then the end I'll include all the bits that were spoilers-ish, or anything I want to mention that is more spoilery. So yeah, but oh my god, I gave this 5 stars, and I thought maybe this was going to be another book that is like overrated, overhyped, that like I expect so much from that I end up being disappointed. I was wrong. This is so much better than expected. I do have to say that you do have to push through the first part of it. It's slow. I could not connect for the first chapter. I was like, what the hell am I reading? But things get so much better. And I put so many post-it. The humor was great. The world building was amazing. The main female character was interesting and wasn't that cute little thing that is better than everyone, just like that. There were a few shocking, very, very shocking scenes. I fell in love with some of the characters. I cannot wait to hear more about them. The magic system is super interesting. It's a school setting with like assassins. I didn't say anything about the story, but really, basic little girl, her family is being murdered and wrongly, and she wants to get her revenge, and she becomes, well, she goes to that school for assassins, and then she trains to try and get her revenge and everything. And yeah, magic is great, the world building is great, the writing was great after that part in the beginning, and I just loved it. I cannot recommend this enough. It's an amazing adult fantasy. I feel like it's kind of in between adult and YA. There are 2 sex scenes, which again, I've been mentioning a lot. Not my jam, but it wasn't overly cringy, overly long, and it didn't take over the whole story, so I was okay with it. The author is not afraid of killing everyone, and I kind of have, my feelings have been hurt a few times, and I need to continue this book, the series. I have the next book on my waiting list at the library. I can't even talk. I'm so like heartbroken here. And the 3rd book is coming out in September. So again, I am dying. I love this. You need to read this. I'm telling you right now, this is making it to my best of 2019. So this is by far the best book that I've read this month. Loved it so much. Like so much. There's so much in here. Like one of the things I was saying during the reading vlog is that sometimes I'll read like a popular YA series, for example, and like I feel like everyone loves the world or loves the characters so much, and I feel like I'm trying to like also fall in love with it, but I feel like there's not enough substance, and like it sounds so cringy when I'm saying that. It's like, oh, it's not good enough for me, but like I mean, like I want to, but then I don't feel like there's enough story, there's not enough like to actually feel like I know the characters of the world. But there's so much in here, like so much in a really good way. And people were complaining about the note at the end of each pages, which obviously now that I'm saying that, I'm finding absolutely none. Like one, I just need 1 page. Okay, for example, here, like look, this is like almost half the page. And I thought this would bother me, but no. I mean, if you're struggling in the beginning, skip them, but I feel like it just, first off, there's a bunch of jokes in there from the narrator, and there's a bunch more like of the story, of the world, and yeah, I need to like put it down and just stop talking about it, but so good, so good. I would actually read this like right now. I feel like I've been very lucky with like fantasy so far this year. I feel like I should read more, because every time I read one, I fall in love with it, and everything else that I try to like, I mean, sometimes it's good to still get out of your comfort zone, but I still need to read more fantasy. So good. Like so good. And it took me forever to read this book because I thought I was going to be overhyped, because on Goodreads, some of the people that I do follow and trust their review hated it, and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna hate this again. And no. Loved it. 5 stars. Love it. Okay, next book that was part of one of my challenge was Be Gone in Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara. It's another book that I did listen to as an audiobook, which I would recommend. I feel like, once again, it was one of those type of books where I like the idea of, but when I'm listening to it, I don't think I would have been able to like go through it this quickly if I had the physical book. I feel like audiobook made it easier to just go through it. Unfortunately, the author passed away before she was able to figure out who was the killer. It was still an interesting story. If you love those type of like murder, crime, mystery type of thing, you will love this. Personally, not really my thing, but it was raved about so much I ended up reading it. I did enjoy it, but it's not a favorite, you know what I mean? Like, still an impressive like research and woman, but yeah, if you like that stuff, you'll like it. If you don't, it was still interesting. Like, I'm happy I read it. It's just that it's not something I'm going to be like, okay, now I need to read like 20 more books about the Golden State Killer. You know what I mean? Oh, next book. This is the new hyped thriller mystery. I never know which to categorize them. I just put them together. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides? Maybe? Oh boy. Okay. This is another one I ended up listening to as an audiobook. Basically, I read a lot of audiobooks whenever I can because the waiting list at my library is shorter. And I feel like this one had an interesting premise. You're following kind of it's a psychological thriller where you're following a woman who murdered her husband, and she hasn't spoken one word since, and you're following this psychiatrist trying to make her talk and like kind of figure out her story. And unfortunately for me, with thrillers, I need either the writing to be nice or like very interesting twist or things I don't see coming. And unfortunately, I didn't really care for the characters. I don't feel like they were fleshed out nicely. I didn't care for the writing either. And like, it was fine, just that it wasn't like amazing enough to compensate for the fact that I saw every twist coming, and it just left me a bit meh. Like, it wasn't horrible, it just wasn't good either for me. The reviews are so far very positive, so maybe my opinion doesn't really mean too much, I guess. It's gonna be depending if you read a lot of them or not, but I feel like I've been so disappointed with so many like mystery thrillers lately that it's just another, it's okay, just wouldn't be my first recommendation. Then the next book I finished was Golden State by Ben H. Winters. I did read the Last Policeman series last year, and I feel like similar syndrome here. I like the idea more than the execution, and I feel like in both cases a shorter format would have been better. Like, a trilogy for that other thing was too much, and for this case it's one book but it's like 300 pages, and I feel like it would have been better if it had been like half that size. It's a dystopian world where, like, basically I'm getting huge vibes of like 1984 and The Giver type of thing. Dystopian world where you're following a main character who is, what's the name of those things? A speculative service. It's kind of law enforcement, but they know when people are lying type of thing. And like, being caught lying is like the worst thing that can happen to you, and you can just, you know, get kicked out of society if you do that. You're following him as he's trying to figure out a murder, or what do you think is a murder, not an accident. And yeah, it was interesting, but again, I feel like it would have been better if it had been shorter. But if you loved 1984 or like The Giver type of thing, maybe give this one a shot. Personally, 1984 wasn't really for me, so I feel like maybe that's the reason I was still left a little but yeah, I think some people will love it and some people will really hate it, so it's one of those books, right? Last but not least, the last book I finished this month was our big book of the month. If you don't know, every month I pick a big book from my Harry Potter jar here, a book with over 500 pages, usually things that are kind of scary, and then we can read it together, and I talk about it in my wrap-up, but also on Goodreads. If you don't know, we have a book club, Fox Book Club, and I have my personal page too, so definitely follow up if you want to participate and talk about it with us. But I finished very last minute this book. This is Les Fiancés de l'Hiver by Christelle Labo, which is the first book in La Passe Miroir. Basically in English, it's A Winter's Promise. And oh my, do I have a lot to say about this. This is one of those books where I have a lot of positive and a lot of negatives to mention. And I read it in French. French is my first language. I have no excuse here. But at first, it took me so long to like get into the book because of the writing. I thought it was me having issues with like going back to French, which is silly. Last year I read Le Comte de Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Had no issue with the language, so it's definitely the writing in here. And I know some of you had the same issue in English. It's not the translation that is weird, it's straight up the writing of the book, so just wanted to throw that out there. But I'm gonna keep it spoiler-free until I don't. I'll let you know when that happens. So, you're following the main character, who is a little bit of a special snowflake. Just one of the things I didn't like. She's mentioned as being like, oh, she doesn't really care about appearance. She likes being alone with like her, not really her books, but she tends to read things. Like, she has that superpower. It's a magical world, and she can read the past of objects and people that touch them. So she prefers being alone. She has glasses, curly hair. You get the special, you know, effect here. I thought the world building and the magic system were super interesting. I do feel like they could have been developed a bit more, but I do think it's possibly because you're following the story through the main character, who is pretty naive and doesn't know a lot of everything. So she's part of like a society where everyone is related, like everyone is like cousins and, you know, family with that one ancestor. And then she is sent to be married, kind of forcefully, not kind of, forcefully, to someone from a different part of the world. And they worked kind of differently. Like, her people are all friends, even though, you know, people gossip and stuff. There's no real drama per se, but in that other world, everyone kill each other. So it's definitely a more, I was going to say like political intrigue type of thing, but maybe it's more family intrigue, kind of a mix of both. So as I was mentioning, the writing, I kind of had issues with it. I feel like it's very slow paced. It's through the eyes of the main character, and she very often is stuck kind of in the background, or at one point she's not even allowed to talk. So it's a lot of like internal dialogue. The main character is very shy, which might be more unique than following another, you know, warrior that can kill everyone just like that. My issue though is that she was so incredibly bland and naive. So naive. And like, I don't know if it was like that because the author meant for us to be able to like see herself in her. Like, I was having like Twilight flashbacks. Like, you know how she's so clumsy? Same thing here, but super bland because everyone wanted to be able to be Bella. It felt a little bit like that, but like it definitely didn't feel, maybe as a kid, like I would have been able to relate more. Like, I used to have glasses and everything, so maybe I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm exactly like her. Things definitely did pick up towards like the middle-ish part where you met a lot of other people with a lot of different magical powers, which were very interesting. I'm not going to spoil it just in case. But some of my issues, I don't think they're really spoilery, but feel free to like end here if you don't want anything. But like I was saying, she's very, very naive, and her family, the main ancestor, is a woman. And it felt kind of weird how it's like matriarchal society, yet it was still super sexist. Like, everyone needed to be married. I don't remember how old she is, but like something like 18, and like she has to be married like ASAP. And women seems to only be like popping a few kids and just gossiping and being very, they're not really seen positively, I guess. And as I was saying, she's being forced to marry someone else, and girl was so naive about the whole thing. And actually, you know what? This is where I'm gonna start with the spoilers, so definitely stop here if you don't want any. But you know, I had so many issues with that romance because she is so like, oh, I'm not going to fall in love, and like I was getting kind of like asexual vibes from her, which could have been nice for representation. I'm not sure if she's actually meant to be like that. But at one point, the guy starts confessing to her, like they're not talking, they both don't want to get married. But then at one point, out of nowhere, he's telling her how, oh, I got used to you. And I'm like, ooh, like that whole like déclaration d'amour, like, ooh, that is true love coming out. And she starts thinking, oh my God, he's like falling in love with me. Like, I need to stop that. And I'm like, girl, sit the F down. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that him falling in love with you? Like, for things I had actually questions, because I feel like sometimes some of the things kind of were left a bit confusing. Like, I wasn't sure at the end if Torn was the bad guy or his end. Like, it's kind of left open, which I guess might be answered in book 2. I also wasn't sure if, or Gift, like we were led to believe that they were both end up with each other's power if they got married. But then at the end, I feel like it was kind of hinted that maybe she would just lose her power and he would have both. That wasn't well explained, I feel like. And honestly, I was almost a bit, like the twist at the end, I was almost a little bit disappointed that we don't know if Torn is the bad guy or not. And like, I was kind of hoping throughout the whole book that maybe it would like soften up and like there would be actually a romance, which if I'm rooting for romance, you know that there's not that much happening. And yeah, I am so torn about this book because I feel like I half thought there was so much potential and half I'm kind of let down, but hopeful maybe next book would be better. Let me know if you have read more from this series, because I feel like the opinions were very, very divided, and I feel like myself I'm divided. So I think personally I would continue, not in a rush for it, but I'm definitely open to reading more if you confirm that it gets better, because there's so much potential. Like, the magical powers and everything were so interesting, but definitely nothing similar to Harry Potter. Now I completely understand why everyone was like, why are you even saying that? It's like, people were telling me it was like that, and I'm like, not at all. Like, I don't even understand why that's a thing. Anyway, so yeah, I ended up giving it 3 stars because I'm incredibly confused about it. I don't know how I feel about it. So much and so little. I don't know. I definitely don't think it was worth being over 500 pages. Like, a few things could have been cut off. So that's it, guys. Those are all the books that I finished this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section if you have read any of these books and how you felt about them. Don't forget to also subscribe because you definitely don't want to miss any future videos, and I will be putting some on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.